Morning, everybody. I'm Judith Hunt. I am the Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Telefonica UK, and I'm with Andrea, as I said, just to talk to you this morning about some of our hidden talent. So this morning, we're going to talk to you about the future workforce, a little bit of insight into the work that I do. You know, it won't be a surprise to you, some of the stuff I say, but it kind of brings to life why we took the route that we took. We'll talk about our returners programme and the work we've done there. We're now in our third year. Andrea's then going to take the lead on the attraction and recruitment and what we did in that space. It's very different to our normal kind of candidate experience. And then we'll talk to you about some success stories. So who are we? 6,500 UK employees, 26 million customers nationwide. If you add in our partners, giffgaff, Tesco, Sky, that jumps up to about 36 million, so pretty significant customer base. We are part of the Telefonica group, so global company, but in the UK, you know us as O2, so the brand name. So what do we know about the future workforce? So a lot of what I do is looking at the kind of macroeconomics, so what's going on externally, what's happening in the world, in the UK, and how does that impact what we then do within our workplace. So we know from a gender perspective, you know what, kind of half and half in terms of the workforce. But I'm sure you're all sat in this room and we all know that in businesses, we're still not seeing that, especially in technical businesses and engineering, which we're in, we've still not got to that level. We are very lucky that we have a 50-50 board, so male-female board. However, that doesn't kind of dissipate down into the lower levels, and especially not in our operational area, so we've got a big challenge there. Couldn't stand up here and not reference the bump that I'm carrying, but let's talk about babies. We're not having enough, quite simply, in the UK anymore. So, you know, I'm holding up the numbers, but typically now we have 1.7 children per family in the UK. That kind of, you know, still out in Latin and further afield, they're still having more kids, so typically 2.4. Why does that matter to me in my organisation? Well, actually, what that means is I'm not going to see young people coming through in volume. I'm not going to have as many people available, and that talent pool is shrinking even more rapidly than it was before, because we're not going to see them, because we're not having enough of them, or we're going to have to pull them from other countries. But what that does mean, in contrast, is that actually people are working for longer as well. So people are living for a lot longer. The retirement age is gone. We're probably not in the situation that, you know, our parents were, where actually we could retire quite comfortably at 60. We're still, you know, kind of paying the mortgage, keeping going. So the workforce is getting older. And we've currently got 4 generations working with us at O2. That throws up a whole wide variation of, you know, different nuances that we've got to look at. What does it mean? How do they want to work? Completely different. It also brings in to play what we call sandwich carers. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that term, but what we're typically seeing now is that because people are living longer, the people, our talent, our senior kind of leaders, have caring responsibilities down, but also up. We've also got a lot of the workforce who now have grandchildren and want to take the time to spend with their grandchildren. So some of the things we're looking at is actually how flexible working massively comes into play here, and how we need to embrace that and what we need to do with it. And then we've got the gig economy. So these young people that are coming through, it's not a job for life anymore. They don't want to work with us forever. They want to come in, they want to do what they want to do, and then they're going to move on. And we need to accept that. But what we have to understand is actually how we structure our business will be very different in the next 4 years. So if we want to keep going, if we want to survive, especially in, you know, the industry that we're in, we've got to have pace within the company. So we're not going to win this with retention and with some brilliant HR policies in there. We actually have to reinvent how we employ people. We have to reinvent how we source. We have to reinvent what we do and what benefits we offer people, and why would they want to come to our company as opposed to any other kind of tech company. We've got to be able to move fast. We've got to be quite decisive on this. We can't take our time and decide, oh, will we do this programme? Will we not do this? well, we get this person and we've got to keep going. We've got to keep going because actually, the roles that we've got now, we didn't know about 10 years ago. The roles that we'll be looking for in 5 years' time, we've got absolutely no idea what they'll be. I saw something last night and it was like cyber integration detective type. Hunter was the other one, and I was like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. Quite fancy being a hunter. Don't know what it means, but it's cybersecurity type stuff, and that's what we're moving to, so we have to keep on top of it. So with all of that in mind, we decided actually it's time to do something different. And it was time to start looking at women and to start looking at what we call the leaky pipeline. So we know that actually there are a number of women out there who are taking time off for whatever reason, to have families, take time out to do caring responsibilities. And what they were telling us was they were really struggling to get back into organisations. So they weren't even making it past the CV sift stage because they had a significant gap in their CVs. I'm working with women returners, and Julianne's here in the room with us. We started to look at, okay, so what does this mean? So first of all, returners face kind of a triple whammy of unconscious bias, so it's hard enough anyway for them. But they come back, they've got to think about gender, they've got to think about age, they've got to think about the fact that they've been out the business, how, in a fast-paced technical company, how are they ever going to get back into it? It's a huge challenge for them. They were coming back saying, well, actually, we don't want to be in that senior position anymore. We've done that, we've been at the top. Actually, we want to come in, but we want to do something worthwhile. We still want to be valued. We still want to be great at what we do. But we've taken our foot off the gas a little bit in some cases, not in all, I hasten to add, and I'll talk to you about one of the women later on. 70% of women still fear taking a career break. They don't want to take the time off. Now, I'm talking about women who have had longer than probably 2 years out, so not your maternity leavers who tend to go out, come back in. This is people who have actually had between 2.5 and 10 years out of the business, so to do a variety of things. And what we also realised was 70% of women who were qualified in STEM subjects weren't in the business. So they were moving out to go and do other things. We weren't retaining them in that environment, which is a huge challenge for us as well. So what did we do? We put in our career returner programme. So 14 weeks, we selected a number of women to come in who, as I said, had been out of the workforce between 2.5 and 10 years. We did have, I think, somebody in the first year that had been out for 11 years. So we went a little bit over, but hey. We provide them, we put them into role when they come in, so they actually go into the business. We targeted our operational area, so service management, IT, networks, mainly because, you know what, they need the women, because there's a lot of men in those areas. But also because we thought it'd be one of the hardest ones to do. So to try it, let's prove it in that area first, because then all the other areas we hoped would then follow suit with us. So they go into roles, they are given objectives, just as any new employee would be. But what we do is we put a wrap around them, so we support them. So they get a buddy who knows our systems, our processes, can get them set up. We give them a mentor who is somebody from quite a senior position in the business, who's been on one of our women in leadership programs, but sits outside of that directorate. So actually in terms of networking, in terms of getting an understanding of the business, they've got that stretch, they can go out and do that. And then we also give them support from women returners. And that's about helping them through the process of returning back to work. So they get 4 sessions, coaching sessions, where they all sit together in a cohort and they go through some of the elements that actually might be stopping them. So that can vary from things like, actually, okay, you've gone in here, you're at 100 miles an hour because you're trying to prove yourself. How is that going to be sustainable? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about actually how you continue to do this but get that work-life balance. And they work with us for 14 weeks, and then, best case scenario, we try to offboard them into roles within the business. So I'm going to hand over to Andrea.
So I'm going to talk about the attraction and how we manage the process for our returners hiring. I've worked in the recruitment team at O2 for 12 years. I've looked after graduate, apprentice hiring. I've looked after head office and search roles. And stores as well, so quite a variety. And then onto this project for the returners, which I have to say in all the time is the most rewarding project that I've ever worked on, for two reasons. Firstly, how the business adopted it, and when they saw the talent that came through, they were so surprised, so that was really great. And also helping these people that are so talented get back to the workplace, so that was really great. And as a mum myself, I knew so many people in that situation who were trying to get back into work. So it was really personally quite interesting to me. So how did we go out to attract? So with each of the different types of recruitment, we need to think about how we talk to the candidates, what we say, where we say it, our process, and think differently for each of these different projects we work on. And it was no different with this one. So we started off using Sky Recruit, which is Cielo's candidate management tool. And we use that to allow a really simple process for the candidates. So we didn't put them through our normal ATS system with a long application process. It was a very simple capture form, which only took a few minutes to fill in and just allowed them to sort of do that really easily to kind of get that application through. We also use that tool to pipeline candidates in advance of our programs, mainly at events like the Women Returners Conference and the likes, where we could meet people and register them for that. We used social media, and we also used our internal pool of talent to refer people, which was really interesting. So one of my favourite stories was the graduate up here that referred his mum. I can only hope that my son one day would work with me. And she did get a role, and that was such a lovely story. So really, really liked that one. We had people referring their friends, and someone referred their wife. So all of these people were successful on the programme. So some great internal referrals into that as well. With regards to the candidate journey, we knew we had to be a little bit different. We knew we had to really help these people along the way to build confidence. The talent is there, and they just need to kind of have that confidence through the process. So we started with that simple registration, and then we moved on to self-scheduling telephone interviews, so they could very easily pick their slots and get into the diary for that telephone interview with one point of contact throughout. So every time, every interaction they had with O2 was the same person. We could start building that confidence as they went through the process. When we did the telephone interviews, we focused on their experience, because obviously we did need to know that they were suitable for the allocation of roles we had, but we really focused on that career break as well. So what really came out to me from doing a lot of those interviews was around how much they'd done in their time out. So I think the skills that they'd learnt, charities that they'd been part of, businesses that they'd been running with their partner or friends, work they'd done with the school, or whatever it might have been, there was so much in there that was valuable alongside their previous experience. Not forgetting, for those that have children, the skills that we learn with those children around the negotiation, the patience, and everything else. Anyway, so what I'm saying is a very rounded individual that we could then go back to the managers and talk about the quality of these candidates. And actually the experience they'd had before their break for a lot of these women and men, they had some really senior roles previously, and it was really interesting. Yes, they've had a 6-year break, but really they were top of their game before that, and they were now ready to come in. The other thing from speaking to them was around they'd had that break and now they were ready. So it was really surprising how many actually wanted full-time. So you think you're going to run a returners program, we're going to have to make loads of allowances. We didn't. We ended up with 50-50 part-time, full-time on our first program, which was really interesting, actually, as they came through. Assessment day, we needed to keep that in the same vein as the telephone interviews, nice and light, really, really helping them get through the process and really getting to know them, but in a way that wasn't daunting for them. So we started off with a session which was run by women returners. So that was the first hour or so of the day, which really gave them hints and tips and confidence to really get into that day and get out there and meet the managers that we had with roles on that day. So that was a really great session. They had an office tour where they got to know people so we could informally get to know them. And they had a Q&A with our senior leaders, and that was really important to show them how important this program was for our business. So we had our COO and his team all answering questions. That was a really long session, so we got to know the candidates in that session, and they really got to see how invested our business was in this program as well. So that was the first part of the day, and then it went on to a one-to-one interview. Again, assessors were trained on how to interview and how to make sure they got the best out of these people so they could excel. And then following that, the offers were full or part-time, 4 days or 5 days. And obviously that keep in touch part of the process was really important for this group. We actually had one or two wobble before joining, and we really made some big steps to help them feel secure in joining us, and made amendments to what they were going to do and their flexibility. So maybe they needed to drop their kids off in the morning, or their childcare had fallen through before the start date. And we actually turned them round, and they did start with us. And one of the examples that Jude will touch on briefly is one of those people. So it's great that we offered them that. Very quickly, I'm going to whip through the stats. So 240 applications. We had 60 in year one, and then we had 180 in year two. So obviously, from doing the first program, that got out there, and that really helped us drive applications for the second program. 24 on assessment day both years with 100% attendance, which I think is an interesting point. The commitment of these people, to really secure a role was phenomenal. So really, really solid attendance there. And we recruited 12 in year one, although we only had 6 roles. So we walked out of the assessment day with a real issue on our hands because we had 6 roles and actually 18 candidates they wanted to hire. And we went back and had lots of conversations, and we offered 12. So that really showed the business how great this talent was. And in year 2, we recruited 8. Still in the business now, we have 14. Some chose not to continue and decided it wasn't right for them, or the location wasn't right. But we've got 14 in the business today. And Jude's just going to very quickly touch on one of those success stories.
Claire is now what's her official title? Head of Acquisition and Retention at O2 Drive. She is also our power returner with time-wise, so she won that this year. Claire was one of the women that had a massive wobble. So she had taken time off. She'd had twins, and actually one of our twins has a learning disability, and she wasn't sure. She wanted to come back to work, but she wasn't sure whether she would actually be able to, because of the responsibility she had both for that child and our other 2 children. So she joined our programme almost to test and see, well, okay, I'll come and do this time, and then if it doesn't work, I've not lost anything. I can kind of walk away from it, and it's all fine. The week before, we were checking in, Andrea and I were checking in, saying, right, guys, you all ready to go? Do you know any questions? And she said, I can't do this. And we were like, yeah, you can. Please try and do it. Come in, do the first week, see how you get on. And then 2 weeks into it, I had a conversation with her saying, I still can't do this, it's too hard. I have all these appointments that I need to be at for my son. And actually I'm finding it really difficult to be in the office as well as make these appointments. Work from home. The appointments are an hour, work from home. So, and actually we made that amendment, we worked with our manager and worked through it. Claire has now been promoted twice. She's moved out of the original area she's in. She's moved into digital, which is kind of where we do our aspirational stuff. She works full-time. So back to the kind of part-time scenario, she actually works part-time. Because of the flexibility that we have in our organisation, what she knows is actually she can do school drop-off, she can work from home, she can also take time out for appointments because she just works her hours at a different point in time. So while they may not need the flexibility in terms of the hours worked, that static, actually I'm not going to do a full-time role, they do often need that flexibility in how they do it. So whether, what works for them. She's fantastic. She's one of our role models. She kind of stands up at our Women's Network events. And I think a really good story about talent. Really, really strong, knowledgeable lady. She's come from British Gas, spent a lot of time there in a senior role. And all she needed was for somebody to say, yes, this will work. On the back of this, there's other examples, and there's a link to a video down here that I think we're going to send out, and there's another lady on there talking about her experience. We've also started to see candidates coming in as part of the assessments who, we've made decisions, actually, you're not right for the area that you're in, but where you are right for is a different department. And actually, we don't think you need to come on the programme as such because you're ready to come back and work. We don't think you need as much support. And we've got 2 of those candidates who have now come in, so a lady working in finance, lady working in marketing, both in head of roles. So when we talk about head of, we're talking about CEO -3. So significantly big roles. But they were sat going, can't get back in, can't get back into the business. So I guess the point I'm making is back to my earlier story, talent. We absolutely have to find talent from different places, and we can't keep doing the traditional things. And for us, women returners and career returners is absolutely the way that we're driving and making a change. Okay. Thank you. And